Good afternoon, everyone. The March 3rd, 2025 meeting of the House Naming and Designating Committee is now called to order. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 members present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Do we have any personal orders before we get to our calendar? Seeing none, the first item on the calendar today is HB 1094. Do we have a motion? Representative Butler, you have a motion and a second. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HB 1094 simply takes names the Southern Stars Symphonic Brass Band as the official brass band of Tennessee. The Southern Stars Symphonic Brass Band is a diverse and exceptionally talented group of folks from across the state of Tennessee with musicians from Clarksville, Nashville, Murfreesboro, and Knoxville. The Southern Stars Symphonic has shared their artistry with audiences statewide and beyond that state as the Great American Band Festival. The band is not just about great music, but also dedicated to fostering the spirit of philanthropy, pardon me, I can't say that word, and community service. With that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion. Yeah, it's a tongue tangler.
Sir. Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm not against. I just had a question for. I believe last session when Representative Raper tried to make coleslaw the state food, we wanted to change it to a state food because there's multiple different types of food and there's also multiple different brass bands in Tennessee. I know we have 3 in Nashville. I saw there was 2 in Memphis. They're all across state. Why would we make this one the brass band as opposed to a brass band of our state?
Representative Butler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer your question, I believe we have numerous state songs and numerous other things there's multiples of, and so there wouldn't be anything that would prohibit somebody from running one of those other brass bands or any type of symphony to be named the official state symphony brass band.
Representative Jones, you're recognized.
I know we just made Representative Raper change the word the to a state food, and I believe these are a state song, not the. So it's just consistency. I thought we should be consistent since we made Representative Raper change that last year for making coleslaw a state food, as opposed to just saying this is the band of our state. And obviously these are symbolic gestures, but just for consistency for what we said, we have another bill up talking about a state food today, and just I think it's been the practice of this legislature to not say that one is definitively the of Tennessee, the blank of Tennessee. We've been against that in past, and so this was curious as why this was different. So thank you.
Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I renew my motion.
Any further questions for the sponsor? Representative Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask the sponsor if he also plays a brass instrument.
Representative Butler, you may answer that
Thank
if
you,
you
Mr.
choose to do
Chairman.
so.
I do not. I do well to play a CD.
All right. Any other questions for the sponsor? Any other comments on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Madam Clerk, please take and announce the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 ayes and 1 present not voting.
The bill passes. You move on to state and local government. Next, members, item 2, House Bill 1249 has been taken off notice. Next, members, item 3, HB 0434, is rolled 1 week. That brings us to item number 4, HB 0363. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Representative Reeves, you have a motion and a second. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill designates the month of November as Diabetes Awareness Month. This is an issue that actually is very important to me. I know I could have done this by resolution, but I think it's important that we recognize the 8th leading cause of death in Tennessee. We are the 6th highest incidence of diabetes in the country. And I myself was diagnosed 2 years ago with type 2 diabetes, and I know how important this is to so many people in the state. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Reeves. Do we have any questions for the sponsor? Representative Dixie, you're recognized.
More of a statement. Thank you for bringing this bill. Like you, I was 27 years old when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And so I've been living with it for a while. I wish that we could get more awareness out, because I wish I have known that, yes, part of it is hereditary, but a lot of it is diet and exercise. And so basically, that's how I control mine. I do have to take a little medication, but I'm trying to work myself off of it. But I think this is something that's preventable. And we just have to get a little bit more education out to, especially our communities.
Well, I appreciate those comments. I do the same as you. It's diet and exercise controlled, which is great. And I wish more people knew about the condition and how to address it. So thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Representative Reed, for bringing this bill. And this is something I've heard in my district, particularly right now. People are very concerned about the price of insulin for those who have diabetes, which we see has not been capped. And in fact, there are efforts to remove any type of cap on insulin. So I just hope that's connected in our advocacy and in our awareness that we address the cost of insulin our constituents are dealing with. I've had some emails where people are concerned about these rising costs and healthcare costs in general, but particularly the price of insulin. And so I hope we can do some next steps as well as we raise awareness about diabetes in Tennessee.
Well, I appreciate the comments. Yeah, when you need insulin, you certainly do need it. And I think there's many ways we can address diabetes in our state.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Any other comments on the bill? We have a motion for previous question. Without objection, Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Madam Clerk, please close and announce the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 10 ayes.
The bill passes. Representative Reeves, you are on to Health Committee.
Great. Thank you, Kyle.
That brings us to item number 5, and I will send the gavel to Vice Chair Fritz.
That brings us to item number 5, House Bill 327. Chairman Bulso. Have a motion and a second. Chairman Bulso, would you describe your bill?
Yes, Chairman Fritz, I'm very happy to. As all of you know, next year, our country will be celebrating the 250th year of its independence. It's 250 years ago that Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, where, among other things, he reminded us that we had 3 unalienable rights, and among those were life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what this bill does is it designates the months of June, July, and August on our state calendar as the months to celebrate life, in June to celebrate liberty, in July and to celebrate pursuit of happiness in August. And the logic for that, Mr. Chairman, among other things, is that it was actually in June of 2022 that the U.S. Supreme Court issued its decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. So it's particularly appropriate to recognize June as the month to celebrate life. Obviously, the Declaration itself was signed in July of 1776, so designating July as the month to celebrate liberty is appropriate. And then August, of course, is when most of our school children go back to school, and that's the beginning of the pursuit of happiness. So designating August is appropriate to have pursuit of happiness in that month. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for questions.
Thank you, Chairman Bulso. Does anyone have any questions? Representative Jones.
Thank you. Um, the second month is about liberty. Is that correct?
Chairman Bolso.
Yes.
Representative Jones.
Do you think this idea of liberty, how do you think the founding fathers would feel about the current person in the White House, Trump, likening himself to a king? When we listen to a lot of this rhetoric about liberty, it was about challenging this idea of monarchy from England, and yet we had a man post himself with a crown saying, "Long live the king." Do you think that's contrary to the values of liberty espoused by our founders, and which this month seeks to honor?
Chairman Bolso, I'll let you address that, but Representative Jones, let's stay to what we're doing. That we're recognizing these 3 months. We're not going to bring other people necessarily into this. Chairman Bolso.
Thank you, Chairman. For a second answer in two ways. First, I do not know that all the founding fathers would actually agree with the same position, because obviously, as you know, Adams and Jefferson and Hamilton did not always think the same, particularly when it came to issues about the scope and power of the federal government. So the extent to which the current Trump administration is exercising executive power might be something that Alexander Hamilton might agree with, but something that Madison and Jefferson might not. And then with regard to whether I believe that the current administration is doing anything that's antithetical to our liberties, as announced in the Declaration of Independence, my response would be no, I do not believe that.
Representative Jones.
When in the course of human events, this is how it starts. And if we read that document, we see charge after charge after charge of our founders calling out the attacks of liberty, which this month seeks to honor, from the powers of England, from colonial power, from, that sought to subjugate the colonies. And so I just, I agree with liberty, but I'm trying to understand, what is your definition of liberty? It seems this is obviously a symbolic month that we're saying we want to celebrate liberty. The first month was about life, which you had a very skewed perception of what that idea of protecting life meant. I remember when Pope Francis came to the US Congress and he says, "I'm pro-life." And a lot of people who are part of your party stood up clapping. And then he said, "That's why I'm against the death penalty." And so maybe this is also a week and a month that we can honor life in its fullness, whether that's being against the death penalty, whether that's fighting for healthcare for all people, fighting for environmental protection so people have clean water to live, fighting to end gun violence so our children, are not shot in schools, which is the number one cause of death of children. So I just want us to have a full expansive view. If we're going to be declaring these months about life, then liberty, then let's just, you obviously are engaging in a values debate, and then you want to bring a prescribed value. And so part of our job here is also ascertain what is the definition of that value, and not just a word, but how do we define that? And I think that it goes without saying that none of our founding fathers would have supported a monarchy in this nation. And I don't think that there's any type of roundabout way to try and create arguments about that. I think that there was a universal consensus that we were trying to be free from monarchy and free from tyranny. And so I just hope that we remember that. And as we have these words, maybe they'll be a points of, I'm not against having words for months. I think I'm okay with it. We're both getting ready to celebrate Lent. I think we need points of reflection. I'm not against that, but I just want to make sure that we have the same, a definition that we understand for our people. So when we say to schools, we're going to be celebrating these dates, this is what we mean by it. And that's why I'm asking you these questions.
Thank you, Representative Jones. Chairman Bolso.
Yes, thank you for the question again, Representative Jones. I would simply respond by saying that I think some of the issues you raise underscore why it's important to designate these months of June, July, and August for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because those terms will mean different things to different people. And so having a debate, having a discussion ongoing every year in Tennessee, I think is going to be enriching for all of us.
Thank you, Chairman Bolso. Representative Marsh. We have a call for a previous question. Without objection, clerk, would you take the vote? Clerk, could you please read the vote?
Mr. Chair, you have 7 ayes, 2 nays, 1 present not voting.
The ayes have it. House Bill 327 moves to Judiciary Committee with a positive recommendation. I'm going to pass the gavel back to Chairman Bolso. I stand corrected. I am not passing it back to Chairman Bolso. This brings us to item number 6, SJR 0017. Have a motion and a second. Chairman Bolso, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is the resolution that we saw on the House floor a few weeks ago honoring President Jimmy Carter, our 39th president. I actually bumped it off of the consent calendar because I wanted to expand on it to include some of the accomplishments that President Carter realized during his tenure as our chief executive from 1977 to January of 1981, including the work he did in freeing American hostages, also recognizing some of his prior service pioneering nuclear-powered submarines under Admiral Hyman Rickover during his service after his education on the U.S. Naval Academy, and also including some reflections that President Reagan, his successor, made when the Carter Presidential Center was dedicated on October 1, 1986, on the campus of Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And so having made those changes, I'm presenting this as a resolution that we will ultimately get back on the House floor after it goes through the committee process. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready for questions.
Chairman Bolso, I understand you have the amendment. Could you give me the drafting code on that amendment, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's 004283.
Have a motion and a second. Chairman Bolso, do you have anything else to discuss on the amendment specifically?
I do not.
All right, with that, any questions on the bill and amendment? Mr. Jones, Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. To the sponsor, I just want to clarify, because this was passed unanimously by the Senate, by both Republicans and Democrats. And with these amendments, were they cleared by the Senate sponsor who initially brought this legislation that passed unanimously in the Senate? Were you able to speak with Senator Akbari, and is she okay with all these changes?
Chairman Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The short answer is yes. I've had several exchanges with Senator Akbari, and I think the substance of the changes, she agrees with. Some of the language we did not ultimately come to a complete agreement on.
Representative Jones.
So this was her resolution that she filed that passed unanimously, and so she didn't agree with everything that is being changed. Because I saw in the amendment packet there was actually 3 amendments filed for this, so there's different revisions of that. And are we going with the final version that you ultimately came up with?
Chairman Bolso.
Yes, Representative Jones, that is correct, because as we went through the process, we incorporated more of Senator Akbari's comments on the revisions that I had made.
I'm going to interject. I missed something there. I had a motion and a second. I'm going to go back and review my actions. I had a motion and a second on the amendment 4283. I need a vote. We can do a voice vote for the amendment. All in favor of adding the amendment to the bill, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's added. Chairman Bolso.
And so we are working off the very last amendment, Representative Jones, because it does incorporate as much as possible the additional comments that I received from Senator Akbari's office.
Representative Jones.
Can you clarify what are some of the points that you did not have an agreement on, just so we can understand? Because you said there was not an agreement on some of the changes to this, and what were some of those points of disagreement or of differences of opinion in this new version that you are bringing before the committee?
Chairman Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm not mistaken, Representative Jones, most, if not all of them, concern the very first paragraph on page 3. I have combined in one paragraph work that President Carter did on discrimination and on the Department of Education. And in Senator Akbari's initial draft and in her most recent comments, she had those items broken out into separate paragraphs. Beyond that, as I'm sitting here, I do not recall any other areas of difference.
Representative Jones.
Thank you. I don't have it before me, but something I noticed in your revisions that were present in the original was the removal of his leadership as one of the first presidents to address the climate crisis. I saw that was removed. I also saw when we look at his work inviting people who were impacted by AIDS for his leadership around for the LGBTQ community. I also saw that was removed. And so those are some things I noticed that were removed, and I didn't know if there was others, but those are things that I just noticed. I was trying to understand what was the differences of these two versions, and those are some things that I saw removed in yours, and I was just trying to see if that was okay with the sponsor. But I appreciate you looking and searching, but it just seems like those are part of his legacy. I don't know why we would censor that out or remove it if it's a part of the work he did, and whether you agree with it or not, it's a part of his legacy. Again, this is for somebody who's passed away, and we're just trying to tell their whole story uncensored. And so those are some things I've observed from these revisions.
Thank you, Representative Jones. Chairman Bulso, any other comments?
I'll make two comments. First, with regard to the climate change issue, that was not an area of disagreement between the revisions I made and Senator Akbari's office. The initial resolution did attribute President Carter's installation of solar panels at the White House to his alleged position on climate change, which I think the record shows is historically inaccurate. President Carter put solar panels on the White House as a way of encouraging Americans to move to more sustaining sources of energy because of the difficulty we had with obtaining Arab oil back during the 1970s oil embargoes. And then it's also the case, I can remember this, that, when he was running against President Reagan in 1980, one of the things that President Carter said is that he wanted to have more Illinois coal on the global market than Arab oil. So if someone were to look back at his entire record and say that he was against fossil fuels for reasons pertaining to climate change, I think the record would show that that simply is not correct. So the revision I made with regard to solar panels was simply one that was needed for historical accuracy. The second item you mentioned about ending discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation is still in the resolution. That's part of the very first paragraph on the part of page 3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Bulso. Representative Warner, you had a question?
I move previous question.
We've moved for previous question with no objections. Any objections? No objections as such. Clerk, would you take the vote, please? Everybody's voted. Does anyone want to change their votes? If not, clerk, read the vote, please.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 ayes, 1 present not voting.
I understand the ayes have it. SJR 17 moves on to state and local. And I will actually be passing the gavel this time.
Thank you, Chairman Fritz. That brings us to the very last item on our calendar, item 7, HB 0568. Members, pursuant to Rule 83 of our permanent House rules, the chair appoints the following ad hoc committee: Marsh, Bricken, Bulso, Dixie, and Warner. Speaker Marsh is the chairman of the ad hoc committee, and the chair hereby assigns item 7, HB 0568, to the ad hoc committee. Speaker Marsh.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn without objection. We are adjourned.